that my lack of knowledge in some way really helped me to succeed. And there definitely wasn't this big Fitspo health and fitness information overload. It was pretty much just makeup and weird Instagram filters. But now I just see how much it confuses and fries people's brain. It's still an ever-changing landscape. There is always new research coming out. Yes, science is science, but there's always a little room for bias and opinion. Separate what's necessity and what's potentially holding you back. And that doesn't even account for probably what I think is the most important factor in all of this. Okay guys, I want to talk to you today about something that has been on my mind a lot recently, but also I feel like I'm seeing it more and more often, and that is that an overabundance of information or noise around a certain topic, which, albeit might not be wrong and well-intentioned, can lead to indecision, to analysis paralysis, ultimately stopping someone from starting a health and fitness journey, starting a career path, or overthinking everything. Just not doing anything, not starting because they're worried or they're stressed or they're just completely confused. Whatever your goal is, whether it be related to health and fitness or developing a career or a business or even relationships and family, I always say that the best way to start is just to simply start. And usually along the way, you'll iron out all the creases, you'll start to develop your knowledge in certain areas, and very often your journey is going to meander and change as you develop. It's all well and good saying that, and that would be nice in reality, but there is so much information available nowadays, whether you're consciously seeking that out or just accidentally coming across it, that often just puts that seed of doubt or that worry in our minds, which just ends up stopping us from starting. Now, I can very easily fall into this way of thinking. I am someone who waits for the perfect time. I want to know everything before I start and have weighed up all the options, and I totally overthink and overanalyze everything. I always say ignorance is bliss, and I think in this regard it really helped, because I wasn't overanalyzing and waiting for the perfect understanding and perfect timing. I was just doing it. So this got me thinking, because now I'm on the other side of the spectrum where I work in health and fitness as a trainer, and I am now helping people who were in my position. But what I see increasingly is that people are overwhelmed with articles that they're reading or posts that they're seeing on social media or conflicting opinions, and so much information that's so in-depth about nutrition or exercise or mindset and lifestyle that all they do is panic and they just don't want to do anything. And this can manifest simply to a lack of motivation, where someone feels like, oh, I don't even know what to do, I just can't be bothered. Or it can even go to the other side, where people are actually genuinely worried that they're going to cause themselves injury or harm because they don't know all the information. And honestly, it just makes me sad that people feel this way, because it just doesn't have to be this complicated. So I wanted to address this topic because I think it's important that you have a basic understanding of some of the principles when you start. I think it's useful to have that knowledge. However, there is a certain limit to where that starts to become unhelpful when you're setting out. It's like trying to run before you can crawl. And this is not us actively going out to seek this information. This is stuff that we are bombarded with day in and day out, not just from the health and fitness industry, but from the media and from people we talk to, or even conversations that we overhear. You know, back when I lost weight, social media wasn't as big a thing, and there definitely wasn't this big Fitspo health and fitness information overload. In fact, I can't remember any of that. It was pretty much just makeup and weird Instagram filters. So I feel like I didn't have that as another additional challenge to my weight loss. But now I can see that the amount of information that we're constantly receiving is having a detrimental impact, and I see that play out every single day. And so there's this thin line between having enough information to understand what's happening and feel motivated to start a journey or to start whatever it is that you want to do, and having too much information where you end up in that mindset of analysis paralysis or just pure worry because you don't know all the information, or it makes you feel like you don't know it all. But in reality, when you start, you learn so much along the way, and just like anything in life, you develop, you learn little intricacies and more details, and you will find out so much information by trial and error and just genuinely experiencing it. A couple of videos back, we talked about that university reference. You wouldn't go into university on day one knowing that you have a 4-year degree ahead of you and expect to know all the information. You wouldn't be analysing it and worrying and stressing about it. You would just enter your lectures on day one and just take it day by day. I remember when I went to university, everything didn't make sense. I was studying 4 different subjects each semester and they weren't quite interlinking. But then in second year, I started to see these common threads come together and my knowledge developed, my interest sparked, my journey meandered. You know, I went from going there to study nutrition to ending up wanting to do medicine. And so it was constantly fluctuating. But we accept that you start on day one with a very basic understanding. I'm studying science, for example, but you don't really know the intricacies. And slowly and surely, through trial and error and just generally developing your knowledge, you start to gain momentum and you feel a lot more self-assured and your understanding increases. So we've got this delicate balance of having enough knowledge to get started and be motivated, but having too much information or having conflicting messages which end up confusing you or making you worry. So how do we really go about managing this? So obviously I work in health and fitness now, so my knowledge around nutrition, around exercise principles, and lots of different varying factors to do with health and fitness have increased hugely. However, that being said, it's still an ever-changing landscape. There is always new research coming out, and not only that, but there are experts in every single field who have conflicting opinions. So you can have an esteemed scientist who says that ketogenic diets are the most optimal for fat loss, but then you also might have one that says plant-based diets are optimal for fat loss, because yes, science is science, but there's always a little room for bias and opinion. And that doesn't even account for probably what I think is the most important factor in all of this, and that is that not one person is the same. We are all unique, and so there is no cookie cutter, one size fits all approach. What works for me might not work for you, and it might be completely different to what works for a friend or for a family member, because we are all completely different. And so there's also this huge aspect of finding the best and most optimal choices for yourself and your lifestyle that often is missing when we have this information overload. And this is not to say don't acknowledge other people's opinions or don't listen to any other information, but what it's about is being able to separate what's necessity and what's potentially holding you back. And the reason I feel quite strongly about this is because I post content about these topics. I try to read the room and I try to provide the information that I think is necessary without being confusing or overwhelming. So I want it to be accessible for the beginner, just like I was when I started and I didn't know what a calorie was. But obviously it's never as simple as black and white. It's not as simple as saying A plus B equals C, especially when it comes to our bodies. There is always so much more information that you can learn, and that's something that I feel like develops over time when you start to incorporate these things into your journey. And again, you'll learn through trial and error as well. For example, if we're talking about weight loss, you'll hear often referred to calories in versus calories out. You need to be in a calorie deficit to lose fat. At a very basic level, this is exactly what you need. But obviously there's a lot more that goes into it if you choose to delve a little bit deeper. But ultimately, if you just focus on calories in, calories out to begin with, that is all you need to get started. Now, if somebody was watching a video to understand the very basics of weight loss, so we're talking calories in, where do they come from, calories out, how do we burn energy, and then energy balance in general. If it started talking about caloric availability or macronutrients and atwater factors, maybe even volume eating, satiety, optimizing your diet through protein intake, it would start to get very, very confusing. Again, we need to be able to walk before we can run. I'm sorry about this changing light. I'm again filming with natural light and I keep trying to wait for it to relax a little bit, but it's just not happening now. So I'm sorry if it's distracting, but anyway, you can see how this information starts to get confusing and overwhelming. But this again is not down to the individual. This is the health and fitness industry or the videos and content that's being put out there, which gets confusing. And it's very hard when you're in that position of being a beginner or trying to learn and start out to be able to separate what's necessity and what's information overload. Sometimes I will see comments or I'll see videos which are well-meaning and the information is not technically correct, but maybe they're just not reading the room completely correctly or giving that background information that I feel is necessary for a greater understanding or even a little bit more of a context to what they're talking about. I will often receive posts, videos, TikToks, all sorts of stuff from my clients who will say, can you explain this to me? I don't understand, or I'm confused, or why are they saying this and I thought it was this? And I can totally see this chaos and confusion that's causing. It leads to overthinking, to worrying, to stressing, and ultimately not starting. And I would honestly say this is probably one of the things I get the most questions about. I will receive several messages at least every day asking me, I don't understand where to start. There's too much information and I'm confused. So personally, I feel like this can be a huge issue in this industry, and I know how much it affects so many people. But what really is the solution, I suppose, is the question. Well, one thing that I think is really important is knowing that it's okay not to know everything to start. In fact, it may even be beneficial to have less knowledge about a topic when you start out. Your knowledge around a topic is like building blocks, and it's just like anything else. Take driving a car, for example. You learn the basics. You get in the car, you learn how to adjust the mirrors and the steering wheel to suit you, and then you learn how to drive. So you're not just gonna jump in and do everything straight away without setting the groundwork. And then all the other information is like when you start to learn to drive, you pass your test, and then you drive on the road for the first time, and you start to learn that maybe the rules don't apply to everyone, and there's intricacies that you never even knew about, and other drivers that don't follow the rules that you have to look out for. And so it's always developing, and you learn through those experiences very, very quickly. Secondly, and this is probably easier said than done, but try not to let the overabundance of information worry you or make you fear that you're going to hurt yourself or cause yourself harm. Your bodies are incredible, and as long as you're not doing anything crazy stupid like exercising for 5 or 6 hours of a day or basically starving yourself, you're going to be absolutely fine. Approach it with excitement. Think about it as I get to rather than I have to. I'm gonna try running. I'm gonna see if I enjoy it. If I don't, then I might go and do some weightlifting. If I don't enjoy that, I might go and do some handstands, if you're a bit like me. You want to exercise for an hour or two a day at moderate intensity, then try it out and see if you enjoy it. If you don't want to exercise at all, then don't exercise. And there's always gonna be opinions that suggest otherwise, so just enjoy it. And finally, don't be afraid to ask questions or question things. If you do see a comment or you do see a YouTube video or something and you're just not quite sure how that fits in, then ask somebody. I know this might not be available if you don't have a coach or a personal trainer, if you were looking at health and fitness, for example, but you could comment on a YouTube video and ask the person who made the video to explain it, or just to understand a topic in a little bit more detail. Or you know what, my messages are always open, so if you ever wanted to get an understanding on something, you can send it to me. Like I said, my clients send me stuff all the time and will say, can you please explain this, or does this relate to me, or why are they saying this when I'm doing this? And once they have that understanding, it takes so much weight off their shoulders that they feel so much more capable, in control, and confident with what they're doing. Remember, there is more than one way to skin a cat. There's always going to be different opinions and new emerging research in different areas. And it can be very hard to not absorb that or even see it. But if you can somehow curate what you do see as much as possible, it will go a long way to helping you just take that first step and not have any self-doubt. The most important thing and the number one piece of advice I could ever give you is just do what feels right for you. And once you start, you will learn so much along the way. So I hope this video has helped, and if you have any questions, just like I mentioned, please feel free to drop them down below or always message me as well. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have an amazing day.